Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining today's deeper dive with Buffalo Bayou Partnership Trash Talk. My name is Jessica McFall, and I'm the Communication and Membership Coordinator for Buffalo Bayou Partnership. If you're a first-time viewer of this series or just not familiar with what our organization does, we are the nonprofit responsible for maintaining and restoring Buffalo Bayou from Shepherd Drive to the Port of Houston Turning Basin, which is a 10-mile stretch. And part of that restoration effort in our mission also goes towards waterway cleanup, which once you see the pictures that our team has to deal with the cleanup, you'll really understand how much hard work goes into it. And today you're going to hear from two people that are extremely heavily involved in the waterway cleanup process. The first being Robby Robinson, who is our field operations manager. He works firsthand on the bayou, cleaning up and coordinating efforts with different teams. And then we have Mike Garver, who is a BBP board member, but has been passionate about waterway cleanup efforts for years and has been very integral in helping us get these cleanup efforts going. So I'm going to hand it over to Robby, but first make sure this slide is working. 1 second. Okay. All right, Robby.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Robby Robinson, and welcome to Buffalo Bayou. So I'm the field operations manager that we attempt to keep the bayou clean. And I say attempt to keep it clean because unfortunately the bayou is part of the Harris storm drain system. So we run a program called Clean Green. We've been working on this since about 2002, and I have 5 guys that work for me full time, and we go out and cruise on the bayou, and we utilize volunteers from the Harris County court system that get assigned to do community service, and that's kind of our labor force. And it's a varying labor force. Our numbers are down a little bit this year. We've collected about 1,500 cubic yards because of COVID. We have, community service shut down for a while, and now we've really limited how many people come home. But 1,500 cubic yards is still a lot of trash. To put that in perspective, a commercial dump truck holds about 12 cubic yards, and so 1,500 cubic yards is a lot of trash in the water, and unfortunately, that's just a fraction of the trash that actually comes down the bayou. We get what we can, but a lot of it misses us and goes on down the bayou. And so the trash in the bayou doesn't really come from people littering the bayou. It's like I said, the bayou is a part of the Harris County storm drain system. And so the trash collects on the city streets, and where Buffalo Bayou, White Oak Bayou and Buffalo Bayou come together at Allen's Landing. And this is part of the watershed. You can see the White Oak Bayou and Buffalo Bayou watershed in the middle there. Well, that represents about 227 square miles of urban streets. And so just one bottle, one cup on every other street, and it collects in the storm drains. And when it rains, we call it the first flush, and it comes down the bayou. And then this is an example. This is showing that a lot of people don't realize that the bayous all empty into the San Jacinto River. They're all connected, and eventually they end up in the Gulf. And the Gulf ends up in the Atlantic, and you've heard of the Pacific trash pile, and I think now it has expanded. It's like twice the size of Texas. There's a huge trash pile floating around in the middle of the ocean, and so it's just horrendous what we're doing to the world. And this is just one bayou, one city in the nation. It's happening all over. It's not just Houston. Houston, we have a problem because we're so large, but this is happening all over the world. Not just Houston, not just the United States. And so We ready for the next slide? Yeah, so this is a great example of the storm drains. This is, I wish I had one more picture showing it from far away. This is at Sabine Street Landing, which is really inside, it's right at the edge of Buffalo Bayou Park. And the grounds are just pristine here. You have no idea that this is a dumping ground for trash. And so, as you can see, the mouth of the outfall there from a distance was really pretty close, because you can see up in it. Then you look up in the outfall and it's full of trash. You can see some basketballs and cups and bottles, and that's just representative. That's just one storm drain on one street, and you just amplify that thousands and thousands of times, and that's what we're dealing with. So this is another example of these are a lot bigger storm drains, but you can see these are down in the port, and those grates will clog up, and we try to clean these when we can, and we do it by hand and with a vacuum boat, which we're going to look at later. But this is just another picture of a storm drain. So we remove this trash by several different ways. One way is it's all labor intensive, no matter how we do it. So there's a couple of things going on here. This is White Oak Bayou. This is in Championship Park, right where White Oak Bayou comes into Buffalo Bayou. And these are containment booms. There's the white boom in the water, and it was made for the oil field, for an oil containment boom. But what we'll do is we anchor one side of it hard to the shore, and I say hard, it's a rope, it's usually a chain or a stainless steel cable, because we don't want it to come loose. We don't want these booms to end up in the port around the ship's propeller. And so one side of it's hard anchored, the other end is out in the middle, and it's got a soft anchor on it, and we make our own anchors. We make them out of concrete. 5-gallon pails of concrete, and they'll slide on the bottom when the current reaches a certain velocity, and it'll allow that boom to straighten out. And it'll also put what I call a fusible link on it, and that way if the anchor does catch on something hard, instead of it destroying the rope, the little fusible link's actually a little 1/8-inch piece of rope. And when it gets enough force on it, it'll snap. And that way we try not to tear our booms up. So the current will come down, will make a big U shape in the boom. And then as the floatables collect in it, they'll stack up. And then we come daily and service them. You can see the guys in the boats there. So we pick out the trash with pickers like you would use, and you see people in the park, picking trash up. And then we also make our own nets. We started out using crab nets, and that would go by, but the crab nets will not hold up very long. They're not made for this hard use. And so what we've done is taken we use 1/2-inch conduit for our handles, and then we actually use a piece of fencing to make a loop, and then we put shrimp net on it. Shrimp netting is really tough, and so we'll buy used shrimp netting and make our own nets, and they've worked out really well. They're super durable, and it works.
And here's a quick video that was made by one of Robby's team members about how the nets work. So we'll watch that really quick.
Okay. Well, this is the process on this particular type of trash pile. This is a floating trash pile. So we have these rakes that we made, bayou rakes, extended rakes, where we can reach and all the way around the boat and get trash. And So the process is that we have one individual that'll rake the trash to the boat. And then we have guys that are net. These are also nets that we made. Bayou nets. They're made out of heavy duty metal and shrimping nets. And we just put them together because other nets just wouldn't stand up to doing this every day. And so we have people that are netting, they're putting it in the trash cans. And today we have a young lady in the back that's removing the bags and putting bags in. It makes it a little bit more efficient when we're trying to get it out. We can fit approximately 30 bags on this boat, and we will get it today. Just wanted to show you the process on what it takes to save the world.
So here's some more pictures of us in the boats, and you can see the boats are stacked full of trash, and organic material is a big problem, and that's one reason the nets have to be so heavy duty. These, as Jessica can tell you, she's been out before. These nets full of trash are really heavy. They weigh like, when you got a net full of trash with organic wet material in it, they can weigh up to 50, 60 pounds. And so it'll wear you out. It's a day's work out there working on the bayou. And there again, that's a great, and this is Trey in the orange. Yep. So this is another shoreline. We'll actually get out of our boats and go up and down the shoreline using pickers. And there again, you can just see how it's just atrocious what's going on up and down the bayou with all the trash. And then we get to bags. Bags are a whole different animal. When the bayou floods and the water rises, it shows you how many bags are actually coming down the bayou almost continuously. Normally, they're just underwater at the water surface and you don't see them. So when the water rises and gets into the trees and recedes, it leaves the bayou looking like this. And the bayou, after some of these major floods, the bayou will actually look like it's rolled with toilet paper, except it's not toilet paper, it's plastic bags. And there, you don't just reach up there and grab one and pull it out. The turbulence of the water twists and ties the bags onto the trees. They're really hard to get loose. And so we've made our own tools for this too. I call it giving the bags the bird. Our tools have a certain look to them there, but we take these pieces of metal, 1/4-inch rod, and we sharpen ends of them pointed, and that way you can take that and twist it up into the bag and jerk it out of the tree. We have 2 different length poles, one, mid-length, and then, like 6, 8 feet long. And then we have full 15-footers. They're just a little bit dangerous with 15-footers. You have to really be careful when these tools are dangerous. So you have to watch what you're doing. And then that's what it looks like after a flood. That's what our trees look like. And that's just one tree on the bayou, and that'll be all up and down the bayou. After we went through a drought from 2011 to, we were in a drought situation there for several years, and the bayou was actually pristine. It's hard to look at these pictures and believe it, but we were actually hunting for cups and bottles at one point. The bayou was clean. And after the Memorial Day floods, when all the flooding started, it was just, I went out and I was just shocked. It looked like this all up and down the bayou. And so we did plastic bags for about 9 months, and we got 90 cubic yards of nothing but plastic bags. That's 3 30-yard dumpsters full of nothing but plastic bags. And then we had an event that fall, and it did it all over again. It can get pretty frustrating, but the plastic bags are something else.
Yeah, and I wanted to say, after Hurricane Harvey, if you visited Buffalo Bayou Park, the trees were all like this, and there was a media source that said they looked like the world's ugliest decorated Christmas trees because they were so bad. And Robby's job is never ending.
Yeah. So this is a natural collection area. This is the northwest corner of the turning basin in the port. This is right where technically Buffalo Bayou ends and the turning basin begins. And the wind will blow this trash in there, and it kind of just speaks for itself. It can be pretty overwhelming to drive up and see something like this, and it's just crazy. And so now we got the Bio-Vac, and you just saw the port there and how it can be full of trash. And so this is a vacuum boat that Mike Garver, who's going to speak in just a minute, I think, he actually invented this. And it's been modified and been changing since about 2009. And when the conditions are right, the Bio-Vac is just super efficient. So that's a 16-inch diameter hose you're seeing, and it's sucking the trash out of the bayou. We try not, it's a huge vacuum unit that's really strong. I mean, it'll pull you into it if you're not careful. And so we try not to let it touch down in the water, and it'll just pull these floatables right out of the water. And the big advantage of this versus everything else that we've used and is around, it's indiscriminate. It doesn't indiscriminately just pull everything out. You can target the trash and not pick up logs and anything. We're not after anything that's not man-made. We're just trying to pull out the anthropogenic materials out of the water and leave everything that's natural in the water. So this is a picture of the Bio-Vac. This is we just got it back in the water. As you can see, it's pretty and white and blue. It's we just got it refurbished. And on the back end of it, you can see the vacuum unit, and that is essentially what the city would have mounted on a truck. You've seen them going around sucking the piles of leaves or debris up. So we just mounted it on the boat and extended the hoses to it. And the hose runs all the way to the front. And you can see that's Trey that works for us there. And he's actually vacuuming where the water has been over the sidewalk there and vacuuming up that trash. And you could see by hand, just picking up that trash that's on the sidewalk, that would take at least, 30 minutes to pick up by hand, and that vacuum will suck it up in about 4 seconds. It's a really strong vacuum unit. So it vacuums the trash out of the bayou or off the land, whatever we're using, and blows it into the container. It's in the middle of the boat, and the container has screen sides to let the air exit but hold the trash in. And then on the right side, you can see there's just one half the thing's lifted, and you can see the plastic. And also a great example of it's not full of sticks and limbs, and it's really just trash. And that's a big advantage of the Bio-Vac. Another great advantage of it is when you're doing the shoreline, a lot of this styrofoam breaks up into little bitty tiny pieces, also floating in the water for that matter. And if you're picking it by hand, you're not going to try to pick up something the size of a quarter or even the size of the tip of a pencil. And being that it's a vacuum unit, it just, it gets everything, and it's just super efficient. And we hands off to Mike Garver for coming up with this idea. Or hats off, not hands off. So there you can see on the left side, you can see what an advantage having the Bio-Vac is in a situation like that. I mean, you pull up in a boat with and you got a net in your hand, you kind of look at the net like, really? But the vacuum makes short work of it. And on the right side is how we offload it. We have a vacuum unit on shore that's really the identical vacuum unit that's mounted on the boat, and it's we vacuum it out of the Bio-Vac and then blow it in the dumpster. And the dumpster has we've made a special top for it that's vented where it doesn't, otherwise it just blow it all over the ground, and the dumpster wouldn't hold it. So we have made a modification, not modify the dumpsters, but made a special lid for the dumpsters to accommodate this.
Okay, now we will, thank you, Robby, for the thorough explanation. I know for people that haven't seen those photos before, they're pretty shocking, and you can see that, like I said, Robby's work is rarely done, if ever, and it just keeps becoming an issue. And so that's why we bringing on Mike Garver today, who Robby mentioned is the inventor of the Bio-Vac and has been looking into solutions for these problems for several years. And so we're happy to welcome you, Mike. Thanks for joining. Do you want to talk to the audience a little bit about how you got involved in all of this?
How I got involved in this?
Yes.
Well, it was almost at the founding of Buffalo Bayou Partnership. It actually existed before I came on board for a couple of years, and it was a volunteer group that operated out of Central Houston's office with Bob Urey, but we had no staff, and we were just conceptualizing what might be done with Buffalo Bayou to make it much more useful and attractive to the people of Houston. And when we started out, Ann Olson actually worked as the director of the East End Chamber of Commerce. And so I was successful in stealing her from East End Chamber of Commerce to head up Buffalo Bayou Partnership. And it's sort of been off to the races ever since. And of course, Ann has done a fantastic job and been the lead person on all of the trails and parks that have been developed between downtown and Shepherd Drive. And now then we're working on going from downtown to the turning basin. So Ann and I both were representatives of the East End Chamber of Commerce. So now we're finally going east. And so that's kind of the beginning, and a quick update to where we are right now. But
So have you been passionate about the trash issue? Did you see something that was shocking and then you decided to get?
oh yeah, well actually the first trash boat was an old pontoon boat that we had purchased, and three of my maintenance crew fellows operated that, and that was how we got started picking up trash and out of the bayou. And Jessica, as we got into it then and even now, and Robby has several people that are full-time that do help him, including David Rivers, AKA Bio Dave, and AKA Captain Dave, and he does a heck of a job running the Bio-Vac and or the John boats and pontoon boats that we currently use to pick up plastic trash. I saw one of the questions on the screen was the capacity of the Bio-Vac. The container is 11 cubic yards, and it's basically impossible to fill it completely. It picks up probably 9 cubic yards would be a kind of a maximum load before it has to go in for unloading. And we're about to start on another slightly larger boat. It's about 5 or 6 feet longer and 2 feet wider that we can hopefully put an entire 20 cubic yard container on and then winch the container off and on and not have to spend time unloading it. So that'll be the Bio-Vac number 2.
Robby kind of mentioned it, but he was talking about how all of the waterways flow into Buffalo Bayou, which flows into Galveston Bay eventually. And you had given me some pictures that I've included here of surrounding waterways that are not even close to Buffalo Bayou really, but are full of trash as well. So Buffalo Bayou is not the only one.
Well, that's exactly right. And of course, I think Robby pointed out that Buffalo Bayou has about 200 square miles of watershed. And I don't know whether that counts White Oak Bayou or not, but they both are feeding plastic into the Port of Houston. And when you calculate the at 200 square miles, or if you throw in White Oak, it's probably 300 square miles, and consider that the bayou is roughly averages 100 feet wide, that comes out litter coming from 200 or 300 square miles into a half a square mile of Buffalo Bayou. And so that's why it looks like there's so much trash in Buffalo Bayou. It's because it gathers up the litter from this entire watershed. And this litter comes out of people's car windows primarily. We're actually doing studies to ascertain for sure that that is the case. But as I say frequently, no one walks out of their back door and throws this stuff out in the street. It generally comes out of someone's car. A lot of it you'll see are drink containers and fast food containers. That's a picture right there. That's at Matagorda Island, and it's mostly gallon milk jugs, and they may have come from commercial fishermen that pack their lunch and dispose of the drinks that they carried in milk jugs. I don't have any other explanation as to why Matagorda Island would have so many milk jugs on it, but I suspect they came from shrimp boats. But the other thing, that's an interesting picture. That's at Hunting Bio. It's either Hunting or Halls, I don't remember which, but it's right off a federal road just at the Pasadena Tunnel. And that was after one of the storms. This litter got trapped inside someone had put up a barrier to keep the litter from going up into an inlet there on Federal Road, and the water overtopped the barrier, and then it was trapped in there and couldn't get out. So I think it was Magellan midstream cleaned it up themselves and did a heck of a job doing that too, which we certainly appreciate their help. That's just a picture of after a concert in downtown Houston. Now that litter all was picked up by the concert personnel. And the point is that Buffalo Bayou is off to the right. You see it going downhill. And had we had a big storm that night, it would have all been in the bayou. But all of the material in the bayou, virtually 100% of it comes from our roadways to our storm drain, as Robby said, and then into the bayous. That's just some stuff that came out of the bayou that you can identify what's in there. And we've actually been working on legislation to incentivize people to not litter. And that for this session coming up in January, we feel like we have a good chance of actually passing some legislation. We've passed some legislation, but we haven't done enough to really incentivize people to not litter. But we're campaigning for 25 cents a pound refund, and we'll actually charge people like a nickel per bag, or when they buy material that comes in a plastic bag or drink containers. And hopefully that will pass. And then that generates the funds to pay people to bring this plastic back. And 9 states actually have what's called a bottle deposit refund. And if you're old enough, you might remember bottle deposit refund back when bottles were all refillable. Every state had deposit refund, but as they became single-use bottles, only 9 states now use 5-cent deposit, or in the case of Hawaii, 6 cents, or in the case of Maine, 10 cents. I mean, not Maine, Michigan, 10 cents. And of course, they don't have near the number of bottles and drink containers on the roadway that we do have.
Yeah, I think some people will say, well, why don't we just recycle these materials?
Pardon me, say that again, Jessica?
I know some people will say, well, why don't we just recycle these materials?
Which,
Why don't we recycle these materials?
well, it's one thing is we have numerous types of plastic, and so it's very difficult to separate it adequately to restore it back to its present use. And I think one of our listeners said we'd have a little trouble with the petroleum industry, and if we want to charge for plastic. And that's true. We will have, and we have trouble with drink industries also, the retailers and bottlers. But I think enough people are starting to recognize that we've got to do something. And the idea that we're going to educate people and starting at grade school and get them to where they don't litter, that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen anytime soon. So we've got to come up with a financial incentive. The EPA is talking about it. Chevron is talking about it. Many of the plastic manufacturers are talking about it. And the one thing that always comes up is they're focusing on recycling. And we've already discussed that recycling itself is good, but it is also difficult to get plastic in exactly the right category where it can be recycled. But we have a lot of people talking about it. A lot of people know that it's a problem. And where you're going to see a lot of this litter, where it's easily spotted on freeway exits. People, I think, don't want to roll their window down at 70 miles an hour. So they usually dispose of it, if they're going to throw it out of their vehicle, on the exit ramps and on sort of the not the highways, but the byways, the limited use roads in Harris County. You'll start to see a lot of litter, and that's where it all starts on its journey to Buffalo Bayou. So.
Okay, I want to be respectful of your time and our attendees.
Yes,
we have about 65 questions come in.
Did I jump in there just one more?
Yeah, of course.
Maya Corbett is the chairman of Texans for Clean Water, and she's the one carrying the load in Austin for potential legislation. And we do have a website www.texansforcleanwater.org. That's texansforcleanwater.org. And I'm sure Jessica can supply that to anyone that wants to contact Maya. And she would be glad to suggest what is going on in Austin, and if and when the bill gets through committee and gets proposed, we'll need a lot of people to contact their legislator and suggest that we do something to help our waterways. That's it for me right now, Maya.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Sorry to cut you off like that. I appreciate you speaking today, and we're gonna have some questions. Okay, are you ready? Can you hear me okay?
Can you hear me?
Is it for me?
Yes.
Which one?
She's going to ask you a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Somebody asked how much less would it cost to clean up trash on the streets than to clean it up in the bayou?
Oh, it's probably 5% of the cost of getting it out of the bio would be what you could pick it up from on the street if you can get to it soon enough before it makes it into the storm sewer. Although that's not cheap either. I mean, when you see, especially on the state highways, you see a whole convoy of trucks. You have a crash truck, and then you have a couple of red light trucks in the front or yellow light trucks, and then you have the people actually picking it up. So it's not inexpensive to pick it up on the roadways, but it's vastly cheaper than it is picking it up out of the roadway, out of the waterway.
And have we talked to TxDOT about keeping the freeways clean?
Oh yes, and they do their best to pick up plastic before they mow, because otherwise it gets shredded in little bitty pieces that then the little bitty pieces make it to the streams, and they're even harder to pick up. But TxDOT is doing the best they can, I'll say. Again, this plastic is scattered everywhere, and it's very hard to get it out of trees and weeds and that sort of thing. And that's why it winds up in the streams.
This is a question for Robby. How can someone get involved?
Well, to get like officially involved with us is one thing, but you can get involved by just walking out your door and picking up trash, and also not walking past a piece of trash when you're going, if you're going to into the convenience store and there's a piece of trash laying on the ground, reach down and grab it. That's, if more people would just do that, would be better than coming out and helping me actually. But what I've done, I'm a little bit limited in how I can take volunteers here, because the bulk of our force, or besides the guys that work for me every day, are community service workers. And Harris County, my contract with them, they don't want me mixing the general public with the community service people, liability, and yada yada. So what I've done now is, if a group has 5 or more people, I will set aside one of my, we set aside in advance, and I'll let them form a crew and go out, and they can work a half a day or they can work a full day. But it needs to be a group of 5 or more people, up to right now just 10 people. I can take 2 groups on any given day. And I'd like to have about a 2-week notice on that, where I can, set everything up and be ready for them. But
Yeah, thank you. And then also with Buffalo Bayou Partnership, of course, we take donations that can go directly to waterway cleanup. When you go to buffalobayou.org/donate and you get to the donation page, you can actually select waterway cleanup. So we do accept donations that help out a lot in getting the trash out without you having to put the sweat, the blood and sweat into it, because I've done it and it's very, very hard work. Mike, this is a question for you. Is there anything at the city or state level targeting street litter?
Currently, no. The city has shown a great deal of interest, and in fact, I saw one inquiry about the city banning plastic bags, and there was a great deal of interest that for that on city council probably 4 or 5 years ago. And since then, though, the state has made it quite an issue out of bans of any sort, i.e. banning drilling in the cities and whatever. And so the state does not look favorably at banning plastic bags. But that is not to say that we couldn't have an agreement on a fee for plastic bags. And that's what we're working on right now. So the plastic industry, plastic is here. We need plastic. Your car would be awfully bare if we didn't have any plastic in it. And a lot of the furniture has plastic in it. Groceries are all packaged in plastic. So plastic is here, and it's a wonderful product, but we just don't need it in our roadways and in our waterways. And so we've all got to get together and figure out how to deal with this.
Thank you. For Robby, have you considered putting storm drain nets on the most problematic storm drains and outfalls?
Was that for me?
Well, not really. The outfalls, those storm drain nets, the outfall has to be designed for a storm drain net from the get-go. And so you can't just come back and retrofit a storm drain, with a storm drain net. And most of the, I showed you a picture of a couple of storm drains. Well, those two come above ground, but most of the storm drains are really under the water. I don't even know really where they're located. And the storm drain trash that I see, the storm drains I have access to, is not even a millionth % of the trash I deal with. The trash comes off the streets and from the creeks. The couple of storm drains that I have access to, is a small fraction, but that'd be an infrastructure thing for the city. It would, and then you got to have somebody to service those nets. Of course, I'd be glad to service them if they did put them on the storm drains or on the bayou. Of course, I'd be more than happy to service them, but that would be a city issue. That's not something that I have funds or means to install.
Thank you. What kind of federal help is there for this initiative?
What kind of federal help?
Is this question for Mike?
Yes.
Yeah, well, Maya is actually working closely. In fact, I think she is on the board of either Keep Texas Beautiful or Keep America Beautiful. And so we're working at the federal level. There is actually a Senator Udall has a national bottle deposit refund bill in the proposal stage. Whether it's going to have any chance of success or not, I have no clue. I do know we introduced bottle deposit refund at the Texas legislative level, 2 different sessions, and did not get it to where it ever made it to the floor of the House. So.
And then to add to that, we work with Harris County Flood Control District as well as Port Houston to get funding for this initiative.
Here.
She's just commenting.
Okay.
Okay, for Robby, what are the right conditions for the vacuum boat to work well?
Well, the higher the concentration of trash, the better the more efficient the vacuum boat is. So when those couple of pictures of those booms, when they were really piled high with plastic, that's when the Bio-Vac shines. When you just have that mountain of trash, it'll turn a mountain into a molehill in a hurry. It can get it done. So that's the most efficient time.
Also with the Bio-Vac, someone asked, how expensive is the Bio-Vac? Would additional units be something that is considered?
Well, the Bio-Vac is very expensive. Mike, out of his generosity, built that Bio-Vac out of his pocket. So he's probably knows the figures a little bit better than I do. We are, like you said, we are starting with Bio-Vac number 2. We have taken, Mike has refurbished old boats. We've taken boats that were already built and converted them into the Bio-Vac. It's not, they weren't built from scratch. But yes, the more the merrier with the Bio-Vacs. Of course, you gotta have funding for people to run them. We have limited funding. I kind of messed up by not mentioning Harris County Flood Control and the Port of Houston. They are my funders. They're stalwarts of my funding, and without them, we wouldn't be in existence. We do get private donations, which of course help too. I mean, every bit helps, but yeah, our program is about a $500,000 program a year. It's what it takes to get what we get.
Well, Robby, that's right. I mean, it's the Bio-Vac, both the one that's in the water and the one that we're conceiving are both pretty expensive. They started off like, oh gosh, they're used boats and we're going to buy a vacuum unit and put on it. And that doesn't sound too bad, but when you get through with it, you've spent a lot of money on it. And they're more efficient than picking it up with nets. But as Robby will certainly back me up, picking it up out of the water is a good thing, but it is not the thing. We've got to figure out how to not get it in the water in the first place. And one reason that we still have so much litter in the streams is they're kind of hidden by vegetation. And until we start building trails and so forth, people didn't even know it was there and didn't pay any attention to it. So people are paying more attention to it, and we have to have a group thought, a group effort on what the solution is. And the cleanup is today's solution, but it's not the solution.
That's right. Thank you for that. This is a fun question for Robby. Have you or your team found anything valuable in cleaning up the bayou?
No.
I know David Rivers likes to joke that you guys have found everything, including a kitchen sink. Like there was once a kitchen sink.
We have found a kitchen sink. We've found a safe floating. Somebody broke into a house and stopped on the bridge and threw the safe over the bridge, and it floated. But unfortunately, it didn't have anything valuable in it.
That's a bummer.
No, but well, we've seen about everything come down the bayou. I think the strangest thing I saw was after a high water event. I was out, and a basketball goal, the kind that you fill the base full of water to stabilize it. Well, it was coming down the bayou, and it was standing straight up. And it had the net on it, and it was just waiting for somebody to dunk it.
That's pretty funny. I know there's a lot of basketballs and soccer balls that are found.
That's $1.
Yes, yeah. We found besides plastic bottles and cups, I would put balls rank right up there. There's a lot of balls come down the bayou.
Somebody asked if we offer shorter presentations geared towards children, and can we schedule those sort of things with Girl Scout troops and Boy Scout troops? You can always reach out to me and I will get you in touch with the right people to either come out to your event, maybe not during COVID era, but we normally do outreach presentations, and we can now do virtual ones. That's always a possibility if you want Robby or Mike or anybody from our team to talk to your group. Another question, has the Bio-Vac been patented, or have other cities contacted you about obtaining plans for making their own Bio-Vacs? That's for you, Mike.
Not, I don't recall if they have, so I don't think so.
It's not patented.
It's not what?
Is it patented? Patent?
Well, I've thought about it, but no, it isn't. So.
Let me see.
Yes, if I can jump in there, I have had several inquiries about the Bio-Vac from time to time, but most of them aren't from people that could even afford to, you know, they don't think about what this thing really costs. And Mike has made, he's not interested in being in the Bio-Vac business for other people. That he does it for us, but he's not really interested in doing it for the world. And so I pretty much leave it at that with people.
Someone asked if there is any number we can report litter bugs. And I believe I just looked it up through Don't Mess with Texas, you can report when you see somebody litter out their window. I don't know what the repercussion is for them, but it looks like you can definitely do that. Do you guys know of anything?
Do you know what could happen to somebody if they're caught littering? If you report them?
I don't.
No, I don't either.
A few people are asking about the Texas bottle bill. Do either of you know about that?
Oh, unfortunately, I know a lot about it. And as I've said, we were never able to get it out of committee and the legislature. And it has to be statewide because you can't be bringing in bottles from one county to the next if you just had it by one city or one county. So it has to be statewide. And as you know, people have pointed out that the people that sell the drinks don't want to do it, and some of them continue to hold on to the concept that the bottles would be delivered back to the retailer, and the retailer certainly doesn't want to handle them. But the proposal was never to take the the refundable bottles back to the retailer. They would all go to redemption centers, and that's functioning quite well in Hawaii. And Hawaii is the only new state in the last 20 years that has started with a deposit refund.
Someone said they live in Conroe and paddle the sand jack all the time. What other conservation organizations are similar to us that they can get involved with?
Or similar to what?
Conservation organizations.
I'm not keeping track of them, Jessica. I don't have that information.
I'm sure there are some. I'm also not familiar with other ones. I know Galveston Bay has one.
Well, there are a lot of, there's Galveston Bay Foundation, and of course the Cypress Creek has a foundation. So there are a lot of people working on improvement and conservation of our streams in particular. because of all the right-of-way that provides recreational areas, if we can keep them in a presentable fashion.
Someone asked if we're working on partnering with the City of Houston's anti-litter campaign, and actually, yes, we are in early talks with them. We've showed them what we're doing as far as anti-litter, anti-trash, and so yes, we are working with the City of Houston. Oh, someone said, what about cleaning up bus stops, parking lots, and neighborhoods?
That's certainly doable, and anytime it's on the parking lot surface or in someone's just out in the median that where it's safe, well, anything you pick up does not wind up in the stream. So that's what would be fantastic.
Sorry. There's a lot of thank you, Robby and Mike's in here, so I'm going through them as I'm getting to the questions. Yeah, a lot of people are just asking about how to get involved, and like we had talked about, Robby is taking a very limited amount of people on the boats because it's difficult to administer that. And if you're a college, like I saw, how does UHG get involved? Really, I think the thing that we need the most right now is education. So just sharing these posts from Buffalo Bayou's Instagram or Facebook, and just telling your friends about this huge issue, because it seemed to me, and I think Robby and Mike would agree, that it's just been out of sight and out of mind for people. So educating your friends and family members about this trash issue is going to be the most helpful right now. And then secondly, just picking up in your own neighborhoods and seeing when you see trash, picking it up. And Mike and I were talking yesterday. He said, well, now that it's COVID, you can't just pick up any trash item because you don't know where it's been, but you can bring gloves and be prepared for that when you are walking around.
Yes, Jessica, that is a problem. And, I just, Sarah Bernhardt chimed in there a moment ago, but, and she's head of the Biopreservation Association that is concerned with all of our bios, and they do a tremendous amount of cleanup and organize cleanups, which are easier to organize on the smaller streams. It's very difficult, as Robby has pointed out, for volunteers to work on Buffalo Bayou. They can work on his boats, but Buffalo Bayou is really a river, and the getting at the trash is very difficult. But on some of the smaller streams, volunteers can do a super job, and that's actually out of our immediate territory, or Robby's territory.
Right. Yeah, and thank you, Sarah, for providing those links. I think that's very helpful to the attendees. But it's 2:30, so we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you so much, Mike and Robby, for your time and just knowledge about this issue. And thank you to everybody who's attended today. Yes, the presentation will be available. The recording will be available. And since people asked about specifically the slides, I'm guessing for the photos, I will also upload a link to that as well. So you'll receive that tomorrow if you're a registrant. So you'll receive an email tomorrow with both links. And again, thank you, and educate your friends. So thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Jessica, thank you for organizing this.
Thank you for doing it. Appreciate it. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for coming, and thank you, Jessica.
Thanks, Robby.